Hello? My girlfriend said, "Act like you're not with me tonight." I replied, "I'll try." Then I took her to the party and left for good. Went home, packed up, and moved out. When she called at midnight for a ride, I told her, "Still acting," and hung up. For context, I'm Jake, 30M. My girlfriend is Serafina, 28F. We've been together a little over a year and a half, living together for 9 months. If you've ever dated someone whose phone feels more important than you, you'll understand where this is going. Serafina is a lifestyle influencer. About 47K followers. Fashion, wellness, soft life, all that. When we met, she had maybe 12K and worked part-time at a boutique. I admired the hustle. I really did. I helped with photos, captions, lighting. I paid for things so she could focus on growth. At some point, I stopped being a boyfriend and became part of the infrastructure. Fast forward to last Saturday. One of her influencer friends is throwing a birthday party at a rented loft downtown. Open bar, DJs, photographers, basically content bait. Serafina had been talking about it for weeks like it was the Met Gala. While she's doing her makeup, I ask what time we're leaving. She doesn't look at me, just says, super casually, "Hey, can you act like you're not with me tonight?" I actually laughed at first because it sounded like a joke. It wasn't. She finally turns around, annoyed already. "It's not a big deal. I just don't want couple energy there. It kills engagement. People flirt more when they think you're single." I ask what that even means in practice. She sighs like I'm exhausting. "Just don't stand near me. Don't interrupt conversations. And please don't tell anyone we're together unless I say so." That was the moment something shifted, but I didn't explode. I didn't argue. I just said, "Okay, I'll try." She smiled, relieved, kissed my cheek, and went back to contouring like she hadn't just demoted me to a background extra. We got in the car. She played with her phone the entire drive, posting stories, checking likes. I watched the city go by and realized I already felt single. I just hadn't admitted it yet. We pulled up to the party. That's where everything actually ended. The party was already loud before we even got inside. Bass vibrating through the sidewalk, people smoking and laughing in little clusters near the entrance. Serafina stepped out of the car first and immediately shifted into what I've come to recognize as her online self. Shoulders back, chin up, phone out. She didn't even wait for me, just walked ahead like we arrived separately. I followed a few steps behind, exactly like she asked. Inside, everything was white and neon and intentional. A photographer by the bar, ring lights near the DJ, girls posing mid-laugh, guys pretending not to notice the cameras while absolutely noticing the cameras. Serafina disappeared into it instantly. Hugs, squeals, compliments flying back and forth. Not once did she look back to see where I was. I grabbed a drink and leaned against a pillar, watching her work the room. That's really what it was, work. Laughing too loud at certain jokes. Touching arms. Tossing her hair when someone pulled out a phone. She didn't introduce me to anyone. When people asked how she knew me, she'd just say, "Oh, he drove me." At one point, a guy in a linen shirt slid right into her space. Hand on the small of her back. She didn't move away. She tilted her head and smiled the way she does when she wants to look effortless. I waited. Surely she'd correct it. She didn't. I caught her eye from across the room and raised my eyebrows, half joking, half not. She rolled her eyes and mouthed, "Relax." That word hit harder than I expected. An hour in, I realized no one there knew who I was to her. Not one person. I was invisible by design. I watched her take photos with guys who definitely thought they had a shot. I watched her accept drinks she didn't need. I watched her become someone who acted single so convincingly that it stopped feeling like an act. The final straw wasn't dramatic. It was small. She walked past me with a group heading to the balcony and said, without stopping, "Don't follow us, okay? It'll look weird." That was it. No anger. No sadness. Just clarity. I finished my drink, set the glass down, and walked out. She didn't notice. Not then. I didn't go far. Just sat in the car for a minute with the engine off, hands on the steering wheel, letting the noise from the party fade into a dull thump behind the walls. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't angry. That surprised me. I felt done. Like when you finish a book and don't even bother reading the last page because you already know how it ends. I checked my phone. No texts. No missed calls. Nothing. She had no idea I'd left, and that felt symbolic. I drove home. Our apartment was quiet in that way that only happens late at night. I turned on one lamp, sat on the edge of the couch, and looked around at all the things I paid for that didn't feel like mine. The neutral furniture she picked because it photographed well. The throw pillows no one was allowed to actually lean on. The framed affirmations about abundance and alignment. I opened the bedroom closet and started pulling out my clothes. Just mine. No drama. No slamming drawers. I laid everything out on the bed like I was packing for a long trip, which I guess I was. That's when my phone buzzed. Serafina, where did you go? No apology. No concern. Just confusion, like a prop had wandered off set. I didn't respond. I packed a bag. Then another. Grabbed my laptop, my charger, the watch my dad gave me. Every item felt lighter than it should have, like I'd already let go of it emotionally months ago, and was just now catching up physically. Around midnight, my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. I let it ring. It stopped, then rang again. I answered the third time, already knowing what she'd say. Hey, she said, sounding annoyed more than worried. I need a ride. Everyone's drunk, and I'm not taking an Uber dressed like this. I looked around the empty bedroom. My side of the closet bare. The bed stripped down to a mattress. I smiled, even though she couldn't see it. I thought you wanted me to act like I wasn't with you tonight. Silence. I am, I added. Still acting. Then I hung up. That was the moment I knew I wasn't going back. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because I was spiraling, but because my brain felt weirdly alert, like it had been waiting for permission to move on and finally got it. I crashed on my buddy Eric's couch. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a blanket and said, spare keys on the counter. Water's in the fridge. That alone told me I'd made the right choice. Around 8 a.m., my phone started lighting up. Missed calls, texts, voice notes. Serafina had entered the phase where confusion turns into irritation. What was that last night? You embarrassed me. People noticed you disappeared. This is not how a supportive partner acts. I stared at the messages while brushing my teeth, foam dripping into the sink, and felt nothing. Not guilt. Not defensiveness. Just distance. I replied with one sentence. I'm moving out. 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared. Reappeared. She called. I didn't answer. By noon, the tone changed. Can we talk like adults? You're overreacting. You know how important that event was for my brand. That word again. Brand. I went back to the apartment while she was out working. Packed the rest of my things. Didn't touch hers. Didn't make a mess. I even wiped down the counter after I disconnected my coffee machine, because habits die hard. I left my keys on the table. That's when I noticed something that would have destroyed me a month ago. A tripod set up in the living room. Ring light plugged in. A sticky note on the mirror that said, shoot GRWM real before noon. I wasn't part of her life anymore. I was part of her setup. As I was carrying the last box to my car, my phone buzzed again. A voice note this time. I played it. Her voice was sharp, clipped. So you just decided to punish me? Over one night. Jake, you're being dramatic. This is literally my job. If you can't handle that, maybe you're not built for dating someone like me. That's when it hit me. She wasn't upset I left. She was upset I stopped playing my role. I didn't respond. I drove away, watching the building shrink in my rearview mirror, and for the first time in a long time, I felt quiet. Not lonely. Just free. By the next morning, she'd switched tactics completely. I woke up to a long text that read like a PR statement. Lots of I feel language. Lots of selective memory. I feel like you misunderstood me. I never said I didn't want you there. You know how insecure you can get when I'm networking. That one almost made me laugh. She followed it up with, we should talk in person. This doesn't need to be this extreme. Extreme. As if quietly leaving instead of yelling in the middle of a party was somehow dramatic. I didn't respond right away. I went to work. Sat through meetings. Answered emails. It was strange how normal everything felt while my phone kept buzzing in my pocket like a trapped insect. Around lunch, she sent another message. I told people you had a work emergency. I covered for you. That sentence told me more than anything else she'd said. Not I was worried. Not I'm sorry. But I covered for you. I replied with 2 words, you didn't have to. Her response was instant. Of course I did. We're a team. That's when I realized how differently we define that word. To her, a team meant I financed, supported, and stayed quiet while she curated a version of herself that didn't include me. To me, a team meant showing up as yourself and standing next to the person you claim to care about, even when it's inconvenient. She called again that afternoon. I finally answered. Are you seriously ending things like this? She snapped. No hello. No softness. Over one sentence. It wasn't one sentence, I said calmly. It was a pattern. She scoffed. So you're punishing me because you're insecure. There it was. The default setting. I didn't punish you, I said. I removed myself. That's the same thing. No, I replied. Punishment is meant to teach. I'm not trying to teach you anything. There was a pause on the line. I could hear traffic, voices, the city behind her. So what? She said finally. You're just done? Yes. The word came out easier than I expected. She laughed, sharp and humorless. You'll be back. You always calm down. That assumption, that I'd always return to my assigned position, was the last thing she had left. I hung up. And this time, she didn't call back right away. Silence from her lasted exactly 6 hours. By that evening, the messages came back heavier, longer, more emotional. Paragraphs instead of jabs. Screenshots of old photos. Voice notes where she sounded tired instead of sharp. I didn't realize you felt this way. You should have told me sooner. I was just trying to protect what I'm building. That last one stuck with me. Protect. Like I was some kind of liability. She asked if we could meet. Just to talk. Said she hated that this was ending over misunderstandings. Said she missed me already. That one felt rehearsed, like she'd practiced it out loud first. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet the next day. Public place. Coffee shop near the apartment. I wanted closure, not reconciliation, even if she didn't realize that yet. She showed up late. Of course she did. Big sunglasses. Perfect hair. Neutral outfit that looked casual but definitely wasn't. She hugged me like we were still together, like muscle memory might trick me into forgetting. You look tired, she said, sitting down. I moved out, I replied. That'll do it. She frowned, like that detail still hadn't fully landed. I just think you took what I said the wrong way. I don't think I did. She leaned forward. Jake, acting single at a party doesn't mean being single. It's just optics. Optics. Another word from her world. So when you asked me to disappear, I said, what was I supposed to feel? She sighed dramatically. You're making it emotional. It wasn't personal. That was the problem. It should have been. She went on about algorithms, audience perception, engagement drops. She talked for 10 minutes straight without asking how I felt. When she finally paused, it was only to say, I need a partner who understands the bigger picture. I nodded slowly. And I need a partner who doesn't erase me to look desirable. Her face tightened. You're being unfair. No, I said. I'm being accurate. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. The version of me that stayed quiet, paid up, and waited patiently for crumbs of validation wasn't sitting there anymore. You'll regret this, she said quietly. Not a threat. A belief. I stood up, dropped a few bills on the table, and said, I already regret not doing it sooner. As I walked out, she didn't follow. That told me everything I needed to know. The next few days were quiet in a way that felt earned. No drama. No impulsive texts. Just space. Then, on Thursday night, I opened Instagram out of pure habit, and there it was. A photo from the party. Serafina in a white dress on the balcony, city lights behind her, hair perfectly windblown. Caption. Sometimes you have to choose yourself. Growth isn't comfortable, but it's worth its sparkles. The comments were exactly what you'd expect. Fire emojis. Glow up. Single energy looks good on you. Someone even wrote, love how you're standing on your own now. Standing on her own. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything. She didn't lose a boyfriend. She gained a narrative. That same night, she texted me. I didn't mean for it to look like that. People are assuming things. I almost replied you let them. Instead, I put my phone down. An hour later, she sent another message. Can we at least be cool? I don't want this to be messy. Messy to her meant inconvenient. It meant something she couldn't control or edit or crop. I finally responded. We are cool. We're just not together. She reacted immediately. So that's it. After everything I invested? That word again. Invested. I thought about the rent I covered. The photos I paid for. The nights I drove her home so she could drink and network. The way I shrank myself so she could look bigger. I typed, deleted, typed again. I wasn't an investment. I was a person. No reply. The next morning, I woke up to find she'd unfollowed me. Removed me from her stories archive. Scrubbed me clean like a bad filter choice. Strangely, that was the most respectful thing she'd done the entire breakup. Later that day, a mutual friend texted me, clearly fishing. Hey man, what happened with you and Sarah? She said you couldn't handle her lifestyle. I stared at that message for a while. Then I replied, she's right. I couldn't handle being erased. And that was the first time I didn't feel the need to explain myself any further. 2 weeks later, she called again. This time, it was after midnight. The call came in at 12:47 a.m. I knew it was her before I even checked. Same rhythm as always. 2 short rings, pause, then longer. I let it ring until the screen dimmed, then picked up on the last second. Hey, she said softly, like we were easing into a late-night conversation instead of reopening a wound. What's wrong? I asked, not because I cared, but because midnight calls always mean something. She exhaled shakily. I'm stuck. The party wrapped late, and everyone left together. I didn't plan this well. I leaned back against the headboard at Eric's place, staring at the ceiling fan spin. You want an Uber? She hesitated. I just thought you'd still come get me. There it was. The assumption. The safety net she never thought she'd actually lose. I can't, I said. Why are you being like this? Her voice sharpened instantly. You're really going to leave me stranded to prove a point? I thought about the night she told me not to stand near her. The way she walked past me without slowing down. The balcony doors closing behind her while I stood alone with a drink I didn't even want. I'm not proving a point, I said evenly. I'm respecting what you asked for. Silence. Then a scoff. You're still mad about that? No, I replied. I'm done about that. She laughed bitterly. Wow, so cold. No, I corrected. Just resolved. Her tone shifted again, softer, almost panicked. Jake, please. I don't feel safe. It's late. I'm dressed up. You know how this city gets. I closed my eyes. This was the moment she expected me to fold. To be dependable one last time. To show up quietly and disappear again. You said to act like I wasn't with you. I reminded her. I'm still acting. Are you serious right now? Yes. The line went dead. I set my phone down and waited for the wave of guilt everyone says is supposed to come. It didn't. What came instead was something steadier. Like I'd finally stopped betraying myself to keep someone else comfortable. 5 minutes later, a notification popped up. Message failed to send. She'd blocked me. I smiled, not out of spite, but relief. For the first time since we met, the story she told no longer included me. And that was exactly how it needed to be. Life didn't collapse after that call. That was the surprising part. No dramatic fallout. No spiral. Just quiet adjustments. I changed my routine. New gym. New coffee spot. I stopped instinctively reaching for my phone when something good happened, because there was no one I needed to document it for anymore. About a week later, Eric mentioned something casually while we were eating takeout. You know Sarah posted some video about boundaries, right? I didn't ask him to elaborate, but he did anyway. Apparently she'd gone on a long rant about outgrowing relationships and partners who can't keep up with ambition. Lots of nodding, lots of validation in the comments. People cheering her for choosing herself again. I wasn't mad. I'd already accepted that I was just a chapter she reframed to make sense of her brand. What caught me off guard was the DM I got that same night from one of her friends. Not close, but close enough to know the truth. Hey, this might be weird, but I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. She didn't treat you great. That message sat heavier than anything Serafina had said. I replied with a simple thanks. I'm okay. And I was. A month passed. Then another. The apartment lease ended. I signed my own place, smaller, cheaper, quieter. Furnished it with things I actually liked. Messed up the couch pillows on purpose. Let the place feel lived in instead of staged. One afternoon, as I was unpacking a box labeled miscellaneous, I found an old photo strip from early on. Us in a photo booth. Laughing. Unfiltered. She'd had 15K followers back then. I looked at it for a moment, then tucked it back into the box. Not everything needs to be erased to be finished. The last I heard about her was through someone else's story. Another party. Another caption. Another reinvention. She looked happy. So did I. And for the first time, neither of us needed the other to prove it. I'm writing this now because a few people asked how it actually ended. Not the Instagram version. Not the "we just grew apart" soundbite. The real ending. It ended quietly. No dramatic reunion. No final argument. No apology tour. About 3 months after the night I didn't pick up the phone, I got one last message. Not from her number, email. Subject line, closure. I almost didn't open it. She wrote that she hoped I was doing well. That she'd been reflecting. That maybe she hadn't handled everything perfectly, but neither had I. She said she still believed we taught each other important lessons. She ended with, I wish you nothing but growth. I read it once. Then I closed it. No reply. Because here's the thing I finally understood. Closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you take when you stop needing to be seen by the person who refused to see you. I don't hate her. I don't wish her failure. I genuinely hope she builds whatever life she's chasing. But I also know now that I was never supposed to fit into it. I was supposed to support it quietly, invisibly, until I became inconvenient. Walking away didn't make me strong. Staying would have made me smaller. If there's any advice in this for anyone reading, Pay attention to how someone treats you when they think no one's watching. Pay attention to whether you're allowed to exist fully or only when you're useful. When she told me to act like I wasn't with her, I finally listened. And for the first time in a long time, I acted like I was with myself. That's where it really ended. Bye-bye.